My name is Dylan Steven. I'm the CEO of 118 Group, and today I want to talk about how much should a website cost. This is a very common question we get during the initial sales process, and I want to provide some insight from a web developer's perspective, a web designer's perspective. These presentations are not meant to be pretty, as you can tell from this opening graphic, but they are meant to get you, the key details, the key information, and then get out. So let's dive right in. How much should a website cost? I think, the best way I like to draw analogies between things in the web world and things in real life because it can make it a little bit more concrete. So another question that's similar to this that might help you kind of start to see the picture we're going to paint is if I asked you how long is a piece of string. I'll give you a second to kind of think about how you would answer that before I move on. So the short answer is you can pay just about anything for a website, right? There is cheap and very expensive. And I want to show kind of some of that, some examples here. So cheap, you can go to a tool called Fiverr and search web design. And here you'll find websites ranging from $95 to $125 to $360. And so you can find a ton of different providers for cheap websites on Fiverr. And then, the other option, if you want the more expensive option, you could go, for example, to Clutch and look at top web designers in Boston. And you can see minimum project sizes that range dramatically, a huge step up from Fiverr, obviously, right? A completely different ballpark, atmosphere, universe, galaxy from the $300 Fiverr website. So the question is, what gives here? How can we have such a discrepancy in cost? And so the next, again, I want to go back to some other analogies here that might help make this a little more concrete. So quick thought experiment. Let's say your kid, if you're a parent, if you're not, you'll have to kind of come up with another one. If you're a parent, your kid is struggling in math and you are in the market for a math tutor, right? This is a service that you are looking to engage someone in. And you evaluate a couple of candidates. Tutor A charges $11 an hour and tutor B charges $35 an hour. So you're in the market for a service and already you're seeing there's a big discrepancy in cost. But at this point, you understand, as consumers, we understand, well, there's probably something that tutor B is doing or some qualification or some skill that tutor B brings to the table that tutor A doesn't. So you'd start to parse that out. You'd start to ask questions like, well, what is your educational background? What is your experience tutoring kids? What can you guarantee in terms of outcomes for my kid who's struggling in math? Again, big discrepancy in purchasing this service. And it'd be up to you, the consumer, to decide, well, this is my current economic situation, so this is what I can afford, and this is how much I value my kid, improving in math. Is that $11 an hour? Is it $35 an hour? Is there a difference here in terms of the number of hours that is going to be required to achieve success? So as a consumer, you're going to start to parse out, well, what are the differences here between this tutor A and this tutor B? I understand that they can both be options, and they're going to have different reasons to choose one or the other. So that's the service, right? And let's say the same kid, for example, because kids are expensive, you want to buy your kid a trampoline for their birthday, right? So, I looked this up. You have some trampolines that cost $149, and you have some trampolines that cost $849. And again, now we're talking about a product. So you, as the consumer, you're going to start to parse out, okay, well, is there a higher quality level of trampoline B? Trampoline B maybe comes with a nice netting system that trampoline A doesn't come with. Maybe it's a surface area, a size thing that creates the difference. And you are going to have to decide, well, how much do I value the safety and the quality of the trampoline or the size of the trampoline? Do I want the trampoline to have this net? These are the different things you're going to want to parse out. And so the point of these two thought experiments is that, like, every day, all the time, there are dramatic differences in cost between both services and products that we engage with. But it seems like sometimes when you get into the, you start buying digital services like web design or other design services in general, it can be easy to fall into the mindset that a website here is the same as B website, so A and B should be of similar cost. And so now we want to talk about, outside of these examples in the web world, what are the differences that might lead to that cheap $400 website versus that $50,000 website or that $10,000 website. And it's important to think here, because we talked about a product and a service. It's important to understand that a website is the delivery of a product and a service. So there's the every engage, whoever you're going to engage with to deliver this, there could be factors influencing the price on the product side, the technology side, and the service side, which is why you can see such a range when it comes to websites, right? So main cost variables when it comes to investing in a website. One, obviously, is the scope of work. So just the volume of stuff that's going to have to be addressed. Two, timeline requirements. How quickly does this need to be up? Three, partner selection. What type of a firm or freelancer are you looking to hire? Four would be the quality of deliverables. So at the end of the day, there are better and worse websites, and you need to decide what the value of having a best or worst website is for you, for your business or your organization. Five, this is a really important one, the client experience. What do you want your experience to be like as a client? And then six, pricing methodologies. So, there's a lot of different ways to price a product and a service. And so different partners might choose different routes there. So one, scope of work. Let me make myself a little smaller here. So the scope of work plays one of the biggest roles in pricing for a website, which makes sense. The scope of work refers to the services being rendered as well as the size and complexity of this website being designed. So, if you want a portal and you want some more complex automations or features, that's part of the scope of work. If you want also, a ton of pages for, different, events or fundraisers or campaigns or things you're doing, that affects the scope of work. Are you hiring a team who's bringing strategy to the table and exploration and discovery, or are you hiring a team that's are you paying for a project that just includes design and implementation, and then are you looking for long-term partnerships or short-term partnerships? That plays a role in that larger strategy conversation as well. So what kinds of services are you engaging? On the Fiverr side, the cheap side here, you're probably not going to have a very thorough discovery and exploration process where you can kind of parse out your vision and talk more about the features you want and kind of walk through some designs you like. You probably get none of that. It's probably a very transactional, maybe a form or a checklist, and that's it. Probably very limited revisions and opportunities to change things. Versus the very expensive side, you might have 2 months of strategy, branding, discussions, exploration before you even start on implementation, or the partner even starts on implementation. So at the end of the day, that affects the scope of work, and then obviously the complexity of the site as well. There are very complex e-commerce websites and client and portaled websites, membership softwares, event calendars, and then you have very straightforward business card, kind of just standard websites. So that all plays a role. The scope of work obviously plays a major role in price differentiation across different partners. So that's the scope of work. Timeline requirements. If you need your website up sooner, it may cost you more, as your partner is probably going to have to prioritize your project over others. And in life, as a consumer, you probably recognize that the express option always comes at a premium. You cannot have your speed and your cost stay the same. That is an unfortunate reality of life, and that's because partners, providers of these services, need to put you above others in order to get that done. And there's a cost to that, that impacts their other relationship. They need to move things around. It changes their organization. There is a cost to that. So timeline requirements impacts cost. Partner selection, this is key. So there are a lot of different types of web partners. I've talked about this in other videos, but it basically comes down to the freelancer, the small team, and the full agency. If you're going to hire a freelancer, which is what you're seeing on Fiverr, it's going to be cheaper. They're going to have probably a limited skill set, and you're just going to be at their whim whenever they're available, whenever they're feeling good or feeling bad or whatever. That's the limitation of the freelancer option: limited skills and limited availability. You have the small team, which we'll go to the other side of the full agency, which is they've got a team of 30 to 50 employees who have skills across the board, and typically very high overheads as a function of this. And so you're typically going to pay a lot more. And then you have the small team, which is kind of a hybrid where they don't have 30 team members, but they have a subject matter experts. They have a diverse set of skills. They have greater availability and responsiveness than the freelancer, and they have less overhead, so they're able to typically charge less in order to be profitable. So you depending on where you're going, you're going to get different quotes. The $50,000 minimum project option that we just saw, that's an agency. That's a full agency. So quality of deliverables, the quality of websites design and development can vary greatly from team to team. That's just the truth. And then the teams that deliver greater quality should be compensated for that quality, right? So at the end of the day, you cannot pay for a Honda and get a Tesla, right? Like and there is a large diversity in the quality of a website. If you don't know what that looks like, then you need to do research before you're in the buying process. Because if you can't tell not even just from the outside, but what services and thought and processes go into launching a Tesla versus a website versus a Honda website, if you don't know what that looks like, those differences, then that's a whole separate video. That's a whole separate conversation. Start to understand that, or else you might be in the market for a Tesla and you might get sold a Honda, or you might just need a Honda and someone's selling you on a Tesla. So you need to understand the differences there for your organization. Client experience, teams that deliver a better experience for you're the client, they may cost more. If you want the first class seat on the airplane gets you from point A to point B, whether you are in the front or the back. It might be the same quality website with the same process, it might be the same website, but you have one team who makes that experience of getting from point A to point B much more enjoyable for you as the client, much smoother for you as the client than another team. They might put you in the back of the plane near the bathroom, right? It's still going to get you there, but it's not going to be as pleasant of an experience. You as the consumer, as the client, need to decide, well, what kind of experience, what's important to my organization right now? Do we want to have a good experience, or do we want to cut costs a little bit on this because that's important to us right now, and sacrifice the quality of our experience as a client? So don't shortcut this. This is an important thing to consider, and you might want to draw on past vendor experiences, partner or vendor experiences, or provider experiences, whoever you engage with regularly for services. You might want to draw on that to understand, I really do value quality experience from my perspective, or I'm pretty flexible. I don't really ask for much, and so I should look for maybe the cheaper option in that regard. And you should ask the teams you're interviewing about this. What is the client experience like, so that you can start to parse that out. Slide 14 here, we talk about pricing methodologies. You have two different pricing methodologies that might play a role here. You have cost plus, which is pretty standard, right? It costs us X to build this, based on the number of hours and the software and our overhead. So the price will be X plus 20%. Or you have value pricing, and that's where the ROI on this project is X, and so we think that we should get a percentage of X because we're delivering the product and the service that is going to create the ROI. So So those two different pricing methodologies, we could do another whole video on that. But at the end of the day, it might be worth asking, where do you land on this? How do you decide what the ROI is? If that's the route you're going to go. And so that's going to affect the way teams price things, essentially. So how long is a piece of string, right? This is the question I asked you at the beginning, gave you a second to brainstorm. A piece of string is as long as it needs to be in order to accomplish the desired outcome, right? It depends on what you need the piece of string for. And that's the same thing with a website, right? A website should be priced in proportion to the value of your desired outcomes. So, if you want your kid to go to Harvard and study economics, right? That if that's the desired outcome, then yeah, the $35 an hour tutor makes sense, right? But if that is, if you have other preferences for your kid, they're really passionate in music and the arts, and you don't necessarily, and they don't show an inclination for the Harvard economic student, then maybe the $11 an hour is preferable. Trampoline, if you're a stickler about safety when it comes to your kids, then you're going to want to get the one with the big net around it. If not, you're going to get a smaller one. It's going to be cheaper. So you have to ask yourself, well, what are my desired outcomes? What do I want my experience to be like? And then that you should be investing in relation to that desired outcome. There's no golden arrow or silver bullet that in terms of pricing for a website that you can lean on here. So a lot of different factors that go into this. If you have any questions about how people price websites or what your website should cost, feel free to email me. That's dylan@118group.com. Thank you very much.